Hi everyone, I'm Allison. Thanks for joining me for Where I'm From 106 with Grace. What have you been reading? I am reading this really beautiful book, Meet Me Tonight in Atlantic City by Jane Wong. Um, Jane is a poet, um, so not surprising. I'm enjoying it and I highly recommend it. Meet Me Tonight in Atlantic City by Jane Wong. Um, and Grace, I'm accepting. Ah, yay!
I
Hi.
like
It's always a little funny getting these to work.
yes,
So,
but it's working. So
yes. Oh, so lovely to see you. Welcome. Thanks for joining me.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, so do you want to chat or do you want to just read it? It's really up to you because
Oh,
you're the guest.
okay. Well, why don't I read it? I don't think I've ever written a poem before, and so even though I do this assignment with my students all the time, I think it's a great poem to use. I've never written one, so here goes. All right, where I'm from. I am from the tissue-thin paper of church Bibles. From Holy Communion melting in saliva, from modesty and skirt slips. I am from the entryway with the scotch-taped print of Jesus above the carpeted stairs, that blonde surfer dude version of him, wooden crucifixes decorating every room, dried out baggies of grapes above the doorways, and the blue and white statue of the Virgin Mary on the altar. Catholics live here. I'm from the green reeds collected on Palm Sunday, now yellowing into braided crosses on the encyclopedia shelves. I'm from praying the rosary, every sorrowful and glorious mystery, on our knees. From Aleli and Ida, I'm from the revenge of a 19-year-old silence and sudden explosions of rage. From pray our Father when you're terrified and confess all your sins before eating the Lord. I'm from the brown scapula hanging next to our brown skin, promising that whoever wears this necklace at the moment of death will be saved. I'm from Caloocan in Metro Manila, born the same year that the first Marcos declared martial law. From Puto Bumbong on Christmas Eve and bitter Hershey's porridge on school days. From Tita Eddie, who lost his hair young and was renamed Uncle Calbo, to Lolo's ghost, who knocked on all of our windows when the clan was fighting on New Year's Eve. I am from the crumbling pile of concrete behind the main house and the family compound that was my first home in this world. I am from what remains in the rubble, rat-chewed photo albums, recipe cards for adobo and paella, genetic mutations for breast cancer and blood conditions that point proudly to our Spanish colonizers. I am from this game of telephone that we've played for generations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me to do this.
Yes, that was wonderful. That last line, what a beautiful way of putting how I feel like I'm in communication with my ancestors too. Like I'm putting my ear to the wall trying to figure out what they're telling me, and
Thank you.
yeah, I just really, and especially having read your book, which I loved, you talk a lot about the subject matter in your book. And so it's a special treat to hear your reflections through the poem. And so, anyway, I just loved it. And it was interesting for me because my father and my four older brothers were all Catholic, but I was not. And so all of this sort of, because we have different mothers. And my mother's, one of her only conditions was that I was not raised Catholic when they had me because she's not a fan. Um, so it's interesting, all of that, all of the iconography, and it still resonates with me because it is so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it's yes, the stories, the um, the theater of
Yes,
math. I mean,
yes,
there's so much that is really beautiful and transcendent even, and
Mm.
yes, and yet there are ways that I still am struggling and thinking about what it means to me to belong and be part of that church. And but I've also gotten some confidence that struggle is part of it, like
Mm.
struggle and thinking about and actively engaging in whether this is something that I want to be a part of is okay. Like, and it's all part of it. But I do love that Catholicism is one thing that really that does connect my family and me, like,
Mm-hmm.
and in all kinds of ways. I mean, it really it's like, as much as the Filipino, there's aspects of Filipino culture. I would argue that being a Catholic is also a very strong cultural component of my life as well. Filipino Catholicism.
Exactly. Because Catholicism is so different depending on your cultural orientation or your cultural background. Irish Catholicism is very different
Yeah.
from Filipino Catholicism, or I mean, not very different, but it manifests differently. It,
Yes. And when I've been on retreats or pilgrimages, even
mm,
with folks, my mother and I were often the only Filipinos, and we did meet like Irish and Italian people, and yet there was some way that I felt related to them
mm,
through the Catholicism. As problematic as Catholicism is, and as much as I question and I recognize like the harm that continues to happen,
yes, yes.
it's I don't know. But like anything worth writing about, I think there's so much, right?
Right.
Struggle with, but like, do
Yeah.
I love it? Do I hate it? Like, I don't know. But that's what I think I'm trying to express and work out sometimes in my
Mm-hmm.
writing.
Mm-hmm. And I think that is a beautiful piece of religion. And I think why so many people are drawn to it and want to choose it because of that sense of community and that shared experience.
Yeah,
Because it does help you feel less alone in
yeah.
this world.
A sense of
Yeah.
belonging that extends through generations, like relatives who I've never met in this life. Like, I've been instructed to pray to them,
Mm.
like, oh, they would have wanted you to have this, or they, you know, I don't know, it's this strange thing of, again, like telephone,
Mm.
praying and directing my prayers to specific people, either relatives who died before I was born, or even, Mary, Joseph, Jesus, like the
Yeah.
ideas of people also.
The
It's
big
this,
three.
right. These ways of like feeling connected beyond
Mhm.
generations. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's still, I mean, that's how I grew up. It's still very powerful force in my life, even if don't actively participate.
I think it is incredible, at least from my sort of sideline position when my father was dying and he had fallen away from Catholicism. His sister was so concerned with last rites, even though
Oh,
he was not. She
mhm,
was like, this needs to happen. I mean, there was a big fight about it with because my sister-in-law has a different religion,
mhm.
so there was this sort of like, who's going to get his soul?
Right. I mean, it's the seven. I think there are seven sacraments in the
Mhm.
Catholic's life, right? And so we have baptism, and then of course the last rites.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it was so real for her. And as someone who
yeah,
doesn't believe and doesn't take in any sacraments, it was so interesting and
yeah.
revealing of how deep it goes.
Yes, and what's interesting too is like how much does the person's belief matter, even in that instance? Like, maybe it's like taking medicine, like, even if people don't fully
Right.
believe that this medicine is going to work, it sort of doesn't matter. Like, take it anyways, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and see what happens.
Well,
But
I think it's very much that thing we talk about so much of tradition and grieving is for the living. And
yeah,
I did feel that very acutely in that moment. But
yeah,
this is for her peace of mind and her also journeying toward the sacrament herself,
yeah,
right? So this is what she needed for herself too.
right,
Um,
right,
so there's all that too,
yeah,
especially I think in a family that
yeah,
went through confirmation together and
yeah,
did these things together.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was with a loved one who is at the end stages of Alzheimer's, and so they
Mm.
don't speak or communicate or move anymore. And yet I had this idea of playing a Spotify of the Rosary,
Wow.
and they
Mhm.
responded because
I
I
bet.
thought, remember hearing that music is
Yeah.
something that stays with us even after brain, diseases like dementia and Alzheimer's. And so I said, oh, let me pray the Rosary and like see what happens and see if they're able to respond. And it was really remarkable actually, because I'd gone and visited them twice, and this was the first time that I had seen them respond in any way. So, I don't know. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
But
Tradition and ritual is powerful in whatever form it takes. And I think that's for me the larger message, like the
mhm.
time that I take to have ritual and gratitude and ceremony in my own life, whatever form that takes, that it has power because we invest it with power.
Yes, yes, yeah. I want to do more ceremonies and rituals.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
It's nice when it's built in, to be honest. I mean,
yeah, right.
that is,
But
I
yeah,
agree, Betsy. That is a beautiful story about the rosary, and to be communicated in that way when you can't communicate any other way.
yeah,
It's,
yeah.
um,
And she spoke like it was. I
she
couldn't believe
spoke.
it.
Oh, wow.
I thought she was beyond language, but she, yeah. I'll write about it at some point. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was. I mean, I hope that we look for these sort of moments every day. I mean, it doesn't have to be as dramatic as that, but something wonderful that is unexpected that happens to us every day. And I have my students keep a notebook. And, this is kind of what I hope that they're looking for is these everyday moments. You might be in it, you might be participating in that moment, or you might just be watching it from far away, but to be open to that and be observing and looking,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it is happening like all the time. Maybe it's something an animal's doing. Like I think I was with my friend Gilmore, who's on here, who like her pizza got taken away by, I think it was either a rat or a squirrel. Like it's sort of gross, but it was also amazing, because it's such a big piece
Yes.
of pizza,
Yeah.
and like a little animal. I don't know. There's
No,
like
I'm
looking.
laughing because my husband was eating a donut.
Uh,
We were in
uh,
Vancouver, and a seagull came and snatched it right out of his hand.
uh,
It was the most like, I don't know. There is something kind of awe-inspiring of the like deliberateness and how they've learned to navigate a world that's been imposed on them by us.
right,
Uh,
right.
that is inspiring too. Like he's gonna get that, or she is gonna get that donut. Um, and it makes me think of Roski's The Book of
Yeah,
Delights. And
yeah,
I was very deliberate after reading that book of like actually writing down the delights. Uh, and I think it is true that the things we give attention, we find more of it. That's not how the saying goes, but that's that's what I'm talking
yeah,
about. And I did. It was such a great exercise to
yeah.
think about those kinds. Like every time I leave my house, there are butterflies because we have lots of bushes, and it feels like I'm being blessed.
Wow, that's wonderful. I should
It's like,
do
oh,
that. Yeah, yeah. To
hi,
like look forward to that. Um,
yeah,
yeah, my friend has confirmed that it was a rat, not a squirrel. Like that makes sense.
I
Squirrels
see
don't eat
there.
pizza. Yeah, squirrels don't eat pizza.
No,
Yeah,
squirrel's a tad more charming, so I can see why you were like maybe a squirrel. Um, because our
right.
relationships to rats are we don't probably give them the respect they deserve
No,
because of
no,
the
no.
diseases they carry.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. But this thing about attention, I think it's incredibly important because
yeah,
that is besides time, that is one of our biggest resources. And so many things are really vying for our attention. And so, what can we do to decide, can we decide what we put our attention to, and how much can we decide what we're going to put our attention to? And I don't mean like we should wall ourselves off from the reality of whatever's happening. I don't mean that, but I do
no,
think there are ways that we can decide where to put some of our attention in the world, and maybe put it towards things that are going to improve our life and others' lives, and not make us feel like not leaving the house, which could, we could easily put our
for
attention
sure.
to that. Um,
I think for me, it's like getting over the hump of that what I do makes any difference. Because I think my paralysis comes from like, well, what difference does it make? You know, like I'm just like some middle-aged white lady. Like nobody needs like to hear what I have to say. So many of people who look like this have done a lot of damage, you know, so I'm just gonna keep it tight, just not engage. And then that's what they want. Like
Yeah, I mean,
that's what they want.
one of the best examples of this I saw was a really long time ago, the first time I ever rode the tube in London.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a PSA, like visual billboard of all these people with like comment buttons coming out of their head. Someone was like walking towards the train, about to fall in the hole. And everyone, their bubble was like, someone else will tell him, someone else will help him. And so,
Yeah.
like, if we were all thinking that, then, then nothing ever gets done. But I think, what if all of us in like these micro ways
Yeah.
were doing things? I do think it matters. And, not to be too grandiose, but like, I don't know, a bunch of little actions and gestures. I do think it matters. Maybe just matters to ourselves, but
Exactly.
I think that's even worth it. Even if everyone around us is rejecting the kindness or whatever, like if that's what makes us feel like ourselves, then we should be doing that.
I agree. And that was sort of the place I had to get to. Like, well, if I'm just doing this for myself, that's actually enough. That's
Mm-hmm.
enough of a reason. That
Yeah.
doesn't make me selfish. That makes me healthy, taking care of myself, prioritizing my own
Yeah.
mental health. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Yes.
So, yeah, I think reaching across the sort of abyss is a powerful thing to just say, I'm here too. You're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think that it's really thrilling to me when I see in moments in public when I see things shift.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a moment yesterday with my husband and this he was buying bread and the person asked him to repeat what he was saying and the person was kind of sharp. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, oh, look, here's this moment. Like, which way is this moment going to go right now? And then it was really beautiful. And then, my husband was really excited about the bread, so I don't think he picked up on the fact that the person was kind of impatient. And then the person was apologized and said, I'm really sorry, I don't have my hearing aids in right now. I forgot them and I couldn't hear you. And then they laughed, and then the person said how much energy my husband was giving him. And I don't know, it was a really beautiful, unexpected moment that like could have gone in two directions. And it was fun to watch it go in a positive direction. And I
Yeah.
think that like improvisational aspect of being in the world with people is hopefully mostly thrilling, and that we can try to turn something around. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes it's like the person
Right.
the other, it's too entrenched, there's too many things not in our favor, but like
Right.
kind of a thrill to see when something does get turned around.
Yeah. And I think it's been really powerful for me to remember everyone's got their own shit, like everyone is going, like he didn't have his hearing aids,
Yeah.
and oftentimes I think I've found that if you do kind of give someone grace, they often feel it and respond to it,
Yeah.
either to apologize or to explain or to kind of just, you know, they feel it. They do feel it. I feel it when someone gives it to me. So, um,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Yeah. 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 Yep. And sometimes, we're in our own stuff and we can't be that person, and someone else
Yes.
gives
Yep.
it. I mean, yeah, I've definitely felt that.
Yes, and I'm always so grateful to that. When I think I was late to a Zoom call, like I almost missed the whole Zoom call because I had misscheduled it, and I was just, hot face, cold sweat, because I really don't like missing things or being late. And I'll just like, oh, it's okay, it happens to stuff, which is what I would say to them
Right.
if they did it. I would say the exact same thing,
Yeah.
but I wasn't saying that to myself, so it was very much appreciated. They could
Yeah.
model that for me.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like, what would it mean to be as kind to ourselves as we are to someone we love?
I'm working on it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but why is it so hard? I mean, it's hard for me, but it is, I don't know. It's like I treat there's ways I speak to myself and treat myself that I like would never treat anyone like that.
Mhm.
It's so cruel. It's, but yeah, I mean, it's something I'm trying to learn and turn around if I'm aware of it. I mean, part of the problem is not being aware
That's
that I'm
I
doing.
think that's the trickiest part, right? And the things that are like deep in, like I was all red and hot and sweaty. I mean, like I didn't say anything. It was just my nervous system,
Mhm.
like, oh, something bad's gonna happen. Like
Yeah,
you did this, and now bad things are coming your way, um, because that had happened,
yeah,
So that part responds,
yeah.
and and I'm grateful that I'm now in a place in my life that I can articulate at least that much.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
I'm really like feeling it,
yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
instead of being shamed, which is what
Right.
I used to feel. Like, I can't believe I'm feeling anything. I'm so ashamed to
Mhm.
just be a robot and never respond. I mean, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
I mean,
But
I
that
was
was,
definitely in. I mean, I think we feel these things because we were probably was probably in
yeah,
our benefit growing up. I mean, I think I was
yeah,
told by multiple people that I should feel shame,
yes,
like teachers, librarians, nurses, on and on. Like,
yeah.
told to feel ashamed. So, yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of trying to shrink yourself. Actually, I was looking over some quotes from your book that I loved, and I was the one where you talk about, well, you do it more than once, but um, being invisible and how that like felt like a superpower because then no one notices you, and so you don't get hurt. But
Mhm.
then that becomes a maladaptive coping mechanism because then you're invisible.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Yeah. And I really liked writing this poem. I mean, it's kind of it gave me a chance to think about where I'm from and um, the physical place. Like, I mean, there's so many ways to answer this question, right? Of like
Yeah.
where I'm from. But I really focused on a physical place, which is that first home I had in the Philippines, and it's how it connects to all of this. Like we were just talking about shame, like it definitely connects to
Mm-hmm.
all of this, and who I am now is very much because of that place that I'm from.
Yeah. It's been so powerful listening to all of these poems because that is the through line. No matter where you're from,
Hmm.
it's made you who you are now. And you create the space that you need for yourself. That saying, I definitely created this. It's been so healing for me to realize we're all sort of on this same journey together,
Yeah,
unraveling, unpacking where we're from and
yeah,
utilizing it to become or be who we are now. And Um, so yeah, that is my question always. What was it like for you writing this, and particularly since you do it with your students? So did it feel? I mean, you said you enjoyed it, but do you have any more thoughts on that?
yeah. I
On
mean,
what it was like?
like even just right before this I was in my car on my notes app revising it. And as I was revising it, I thought, I love this. Like, this is the part of the right. This is why I do this. Like, it's the actual like being in the images, being in the line, revising, like doing the process of writing. That's why I do it. Like, that's the fun part. I mean, I enjoy doing public things too, and meeting you and connecting with people. I love that a lot. I think it's clear. Like when and also like I'm watching who's here, and there are people who I appreciate and love very much, and so I'm happy that they're all here. Um, but and writing has brought me in contact with those people. I wouldn't have met them without writing. Um,
Yeah,
you know, but the actual like being with the words is also like great too, and nothing needs to come from it. Like just being like playing around with these images, that's enough. And I'm really glad that there's more, and it brings me so much richness in my life. But the words and being there, like the writing process alone is worth it.
I agree, and I think that's such an important reminder because we are often very product oriented in
Mhm.
our capitalist society, and so it's good to remember that the process is where it's at. That's where we spend most of our time, really.
Yeah,
So to really appreciate that. And I have been thinking a lot about how this poem and memoir writing or writing creative life in general, for me, it feels like a real act of reclamation.
yeah, Yeah, I think I was talking to someone recently about what storytelling, like memoir writing, means to me. And, even if it's something, maybe something happened to me or somebody said something to me decades ago, and, I wasn't able to do anything in that moment, but being able to write a story about it now and write about it now, there's something there. It's a very important act. Sometimes it's vengeful, and then that's not something I'm going to publish. But sometimes there's other reasons there to do it and to decide to put it, like, to share it with other people. But I do think it is an incredibly important thing, especially for someone who's felt invisible or told that their version of the story is wrong, or that it didn't happen to them, that someone else's version is the right version of what happened. I just think it is an important act, even if you never publish or decide you want to share that story
I
to yourself.
agree. It's so true.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
no,
I thought you were finished.
saying, like, telling the story to yourself is important.
I completely agree. And I feel, I don't know if you have this experience, but one of the things I was the most kind of moved by when I started writing my own story was I could feel it was true, like in my bones, in a
Yeah.
way that when I think about what happened, I can kind of talk myself out of it a bit more.
Yeah.
Um, Writing it was like, oh, this happened.
Yeah.
It's so, I mean, honestly, I think it's been life changing, this kind of like deeper level of accepting, believing myself.
Yep. And nobody, like, when you're writing, no one's interrupting your story and saying,
Yeah.
well, maybe this is what was going on, or maybe you didn't consider this, or all these ways of saying your version is not your version. So,
That's so true.
yeah, you got to.
I'm laughing just because it's so, so true.
Oh, yeah.
All the different ways that they could tell you that you're making it a bigger deal than it is, when it is
Yeah.
actually a very big deal.
Right. And then we learn to like police ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Habit becomes like, oh, well, maybe that person didn't really mean it, or maybe you just misinterpreted it, as opposed to, well, what do you feel deeply? What did you observe? Centering our version of things first
Mm-hmm.
is, I think, really important. But writing is a way that I can practice that. But I think I'm out of practice of doing that. But writing can be a way to, like, strengthen that resolve and that habit of, like, believing ourselves.
I agree. And I think also sharing it with people. I've talked to some writer friends about this, like, and everyone just reads it and believes it.
I know, it's amazing. I mean, power of the pen. I mean, I've heard
Mm-hmm.
that cliche my whole life, and there's, I really, I see it, I feel it. Like, I've felt what that means to share something in a small group of people, and it'll never leave the
Yeah.
room. Or I've been lucky enough to meet people in all kinds of ways, who I never would have met without them reading my book or my writing. So yeah, it's a big motivator for me.
Yeah, I think it's maybe the biggest one in the end for me that keeps me going back.
Mm-hmm.
Because you just never know where anything's going to head or be or end up.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
that's something I can control, the actual writing.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you. Do you have any last thoughts before we wrap, Grace? This has been a wonderful conversation. I am so grateful you joined me and shared your poem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I was sort of looking at who joined today, and
Mm-hmm.
thinking, like, I want to hear every single one of their where I'm from, if they would do it.
Have them message me or email me or any or all. I'm open.
Okay.
There's no gatekeeping. Anyone who wants to do it, I just put them on the schedule. They might have to wait till February because
Oh my.
that's where I'm at right now. But no, that's sort of one of my guiding things of, like, I just want to hear what people want to share.
Amazing. Yeah, because all right, I'll
Yes,
encourage.
poke them. Poke them.
But yes, but please, if you'd like to participate and write your own Where I'm From, you can get on the schedule starting in February.
Yes, please do. I would love that.
Yeah.
Please, you found me because Michelle,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all these reminders of how interconnected we are. And that's been a surprise of this project, is this proof of how interconnected, we are, which is a blessing.
Yeah, it is. It is. Hi, everybody. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you for everyone who came and says hello to Grace. And your one friend, his phone was dying, so he left. But
yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But it was sweet he was here. And yeah, thank you so much, Grace. And have a wonderful weekend. And I hope we get to chat again someday.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Bye, everyone.
Bye.